Hey everybody, Tom here from Thicket. How's it going? We are going to talk about tree ID for this video. I am probably going to do some more future videos with tree identification, but for right now I'm going to start with two easy trees that anyone can identify. The reason that they are easy to identify is that they have very, very distinctive leaves. So the first tree I'm going to talk about is called the tulip tree. Around here we call it the tulip poplar, but that's a misnomer. It actually is not a poplar tree. It's part of the magnolia family. But it does have wood that looks similar to a poplar tree. Sometimes it's called the yellow poplar as well, but it is not a poplar tree. It is part of the magnolia family. So actually right on the edge of our house here is a tulip poplar, as I guess we call them. They have very light bark. They are used in light construction for siding. I guess they are using coffin making. So if you ever have a wooden coffin, it might be from the tulip poplar here. You can use its bark to make siding. So if you've ever seen that really distinctive bark siding, chances are it may have come from a tulip poplar. What makes it real distinctive as well is that it has a beautiful, beautiful flower in the springtime that looks like a tulip. Hence the name, the tulip tree or the tulip poplar. That bloom is green and yellow, and it tends to have some orange tints to it. So it's just a beautiful, beautiful flower. The tulip poplar can get anywhere from 100 to 150 feet. Some of the tallest specimens are 200 feet tall. This is the tallest hardwood on the East Coast. So it's no sequoia, but it's the tallest type of trees we have here on the East Coast. You can find the tulip tree or the tulip poplar most of the East Coast, actually, down into Texas, into Canada, even a little bit on the western side of the Mississippi River, but it's definitely an East Coast tree. So I'm going to show you the tulip poplar leaf. It is very distinctive. I am going to show you the leaf of the tulip poplar, but I want you to keep in mind that these leaves are all on this or from the same exact tree, and they all look slightly different. So you don't want to just assume that every leaf is going to look exactly the same, because they're not. So this here is a typical leaf of the tulip poplar or the tulip tree. And if you notice, it has 4 distinct lobes, right? We got 1 lobe, 2 lobe, 3 lobe, 4 lobes. But some of the leaves that are more mature will actually have other points. So there's a point there, there's points down here at the base, another point, and a 4th point here. So these are from the same exact tree, only this is a younger leaf. This is a more mature leaf, and you can see it's quite a bit bigger. I'd say the leaf is probably about 5 inches across or so. I think that's pretty typical for a mature leaf. Here's another example. So this is the tulip tree, the tulip poplar. It's a great hardwood of the East Coast. We are going to take a quick little hike towards the end of our pasture to look at some taller specimens. The trees down here are kind of by the creek. They don't grow what I would call the same as a typical tulip poplar, which is straight. A lot of these are branched at the base. A lot of these have limbs lower down, which is not really typical. So this is what I'm using for my tree ID. I do not consider myself a beginner, but maybe, you know, above average tree ID person. This is a handy little guide here. Ooh. And if it gets hot, you know, you can just do one of these. So this just has some of the major North American trees. And again, I'm in the southern mountains of western North Carolina. So some of these trees aren't here. But the tulip poplar or the tulip tree is in here. And the other tree I'm going to show you is the sassafras. So sassafras is a super, super easy tree to identify. My suggestion is to get yourself a tree ID book, and also most states have a lot of pamphlets online. Most states have a tree ID website. That's a state-funded website. I know North Carolina has a giant packet. I also have that is for your region. So that's really important, to get a regional book that's going to help you ID your trees. It's a fun hobby, and you never know what kind of tree you may find on your property. You may get lucky in your search. You may find a pawpaw tree, a persimmon tree, which are great native fruits of the Southeast and of America, of North Carolina. So if you enjoy tree ID, you may actually find some nice native fruiting trees that you can harvest, which is always a bonus. But let's go ahead and check out some of these bigger tulip trees, and then we'll check out the sassafras. I am standing with my back to a nice specimen of a tulip tree or a tulip poplar, and I mean, the width of my body is basically able to fit inside the width of this tree. So this is a nice example of a tulip poplar. I don't know how old it is, but it's definitely been here a while. Our property was logged, at least I've heard, about 30 or 40 years ago, maybe even a little sooner than that. But they did not log everywhere. I think part of that is they took the easiest trees they could. This section of trees is kind of in a little valley, and we have a creek here, or spring, so I think this was just too hard to log for whatever equipment they had. So we have some nice big trees on our property. This is not even one of our bigger trees. This would be maybe like number 20 of all of our big trees. So this is not even a big tree. This is a decent tree for out here. We have about 20 acres, and we've been exploring it the last couple of years. We have trails. It's much more fun to come out here in the fall and the winter when you can see a lot further distance, and it's just cooler. The trails are more clear. There's no weeds. But if you look at this tulip poplar, you can tell that there's no branches for the first 50 or 60 feet. This is probably, I'm gonna say, close to a 100-foot specimen. So this is what you want to look for when you're looking for a tulip poplar. Let's take another look at it. There may be one more big tree that I can show you that we're close to. We are at Big Mama right now. That's the name of this tree on our property. This may be our biggest tulip poplar, tulip tree on our whole property. We do have a few trees even bigger than this. They're just not tulip poplars. But this is a really old one. I'm glad it was not logged. I think part of the reason it wasn't logged is it has a lot of burls on it, probably from insects. It is a big old mama, so we call this tree Big Mama. Let's just take a second to appreciate the beauty of this tree, and then we're going to talk about the sassafras, which is a nice little tree. We are back down the mountain here. I'm going to show you the second tree. It is probably the easiest tree to identify in America, and that's the sassafras tree. The reason why it's so easy is that it has 3 different types of leaves on it. Most trees only have one type of leaf to identify them. This tree is unmistakable. So the first leaf is a single lobe, just like this. It just looks like a normal leaf. The second leaf is known as the mitten, so it looks like this, a little mitten when you were a kid. And the last leaf, at least when I was a kid, I was taught that it was a fork, so it has 3 different lobes. So it's very interesting for a tree to have 3 different types of leaves in order to identify it. So this is the sassafras tree. You may have heard of sassafras. You can make tea out of it. It was a major component of root beer until the 60s. And then there is a chemical in sassafras that in the 60s, the federal government said that it was a carcinogen. But what is it, right? Sassafras tree, in my opinion, is not something to worry about to get cancer from. You'd have to drink a lot of it. And there's a lot of other things out there that would give you cancer than sassafras tea, in my opinion. So it's a great, easy tree to identify. I'm going to show you the sassafras up close. And cool trees in western North Carolina. We're not super close to Smoky Mountain National Park, about an hour and a half away, but Smoky Mountain National Park has more trees in it than all of Europe. So that's the area we live in. We have a lot of biodiversity. I try to keep track of the trees on the property. It's a fun little hobby. The 2 trees I showed you again were the tulip poplar and the sassafras tree. They are easy trees to get started. There are, tons of trees in America to learn about, to research. If you really get into it, you can really enjoy this fun hobby of tree ID. So we will see you next time. Have a great afternoon. Summer is still in high gear. It's almost August. We got another month of summer, and then it's going to be fall soon. So it's just been a great summer so far. I can't complain. We've had a lot of fun adventures. It's been fun sharing stuff with everybody out there. So if you like our channel, just like our channel, subscribe, comment, and we will get back to you. So thanks again for joining us at Whistle Thicket.